Well, hey there, guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making ourselves a water fountain. Well, for quite some time, I've wanted some kind of water feature in my backyard. I don't want anything really big or overpowering, just something small that, you can enjoy. Everyone enjoys the sound of trickling water. It can be very soothing, and I thought a water fountain might be kind of cool. So well, you know what? Let me show you the components that I'm hoping to use in order to make this fountain. Well, have you ever ordered something with great intentions of making something with it and then put it away and forgot about it or whatever? Well, that's what happened here. And I purchased the components to make a solar water fountain ages ago, and I just haven't really gotten around to doing anything with it. I've never even really been able to test it, of course, because, well, you know what? It was winter. I had no way to test it. So this thing here, we have the fountain parts here. We have the pump, which powers the fountain. It is adjustable, has an adjustable spray. Hopefully I can adjust it enough for what I have in mind. And to power the whole unit, it has this rather large solar panel, which I'm kind of excited to test out and try. So what we're going to do, I'll show you some of the other components here that I have in mind that I want to use in order to make this fountain work. One of them is this rather large plant pot. I got this on sale at a local garden center, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to utilize it in my experiment, I guess we're going to call it here, because I'm not really sure how this is going to go. As well, we have a bag of river rocks. I'm going to get into that in just a bit. I'll explain everything as we go, but let's get into the construction of this. So realistically, I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to decide which one. It comes with several nozzles. I guess I want to take this outside, and we're going to put some water in this. I'm going to hook up the solar panel. We're going to test it to make sure that it works, and then we can play around and decide which nozzle I want to use for our fountain. So let's take this out and give that a whirl and see how we make out. Okay, so I have my pump submerged here. I have about 8 inches of water in here at the most. It's all temporary just to test. So it comes with 3 nozzles. And so this is one. We'll just turn the solar panel over here. It requires direct sunlight to run. Okay, I kind of like that. All right, we'll block the sunlight, and let's try a different nozzle. Whoa. Okay, it's got potential. It's got potential. And we'll turn the solar panel over. I don't know, not a big fan of that one. Okay, I think it's a toss-up between the first one or the second one. But at least we know the solar panel works and the pump works. So where do we go from here? Well, I think what we need is a little bit of clear acrylic. Okay, well, I've dumped out the water and I have the pump in here. And what I want to do is I want to take a measurement from the bottom of our container here to the bottom, or where our nozzle here attaches. And it looks like 16 inches. So what I need is at that 16-inch height mark, I'm going to need to measure the diameter of our container here. And you'll understand more in just a little bit. 16 is a little close to the top. So I'm going to go at 14 inches. Yeah, right there. So let's get a measurement here at 14 inches. We're looking at about 18, 19 inches in diameter. So an 18-inch diameter will serve my purpose. And what we need is to cut a circle of acrylic that is 18 inches in diameter. So for that, we're going to head over to the bandsaw. Well, I checked my acrylic situation, and honestly, I don't have any that will give me an 18 by 18 circle. But I do have a piece that will give me a 17 by 17, and I'm okay with that. We're going to use our circle cutting jig in order to cut the circle out of this acrylic. I have a larger blade in here. It's 5/8. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to accept the radius of this curve, but we're going to find out. If it doesn't, I'll just change the blade and cut it. Now, guys, if you don't know how to use this circle cutting jig, or you don't know how to make one, I do have a tutorial on the channel to make this exact one, so you can set yourself up with that. Either way, let's get this acrylic circle cut at 17 inches in diameter. Well, it looks like our measurements are a little off because it's actually 16 and a half on the one side and 17 on the other. But you know what? I think for what I need this for, I still think this will be perfect. So at this point now, we need to measure the size of the tube that feeds the fountain. So I've measured the main tube here that feeds our pump or feeds our fountain, and it is actually roughly about 5/8. It's a tiny bit smaller than 5/8. So what I want to do is in our plexi, right in the center here, I'm going to drill a 3/4 inch diameter hole right in the center. And it's easy to tell the center because we have our pin mark here from our circle jig. So let's get that cut. For that, I'm just going to use a hole saw. All right, so we're just going to remove this nozzle here. And we're going to lower our acrylic down over top of our nozzle. So we're going to hold this in place here like that. We want to minimize our gap around the outside, but we still want a gap. And once we get it where we want, we're going to take a measurement from the bottom of our container to the bottom of our acrylic, and then remember that measurement. Okay, and we're going to go 15 inches. It's not an exact science, guys. So what do we need now? Well, what we need is some scrap PVC pipe. So I have this old piece of 1.25 PVC. I was up in the attic of my shop, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut 3, possibly 4 pieces of this PVC conduit. We're going to cut it at that measurement that we just took at 15 inches long. So these pieces of conduit are going to be the supports for our plexi. Now I'd like to kind of have them further to the outside. So there are some ribs here that they can sit on. We may do that, but they're going to have to be attached to our acrylic. So maybe what I'm going to do is take some careful measurements and see if I can't attach these somehow. I'm not sure how. Let me have a look at that and I'll see what I can come up with. Well, what I've done here is I've cut a slot 1/2 inch down in each one of these pipes, and I have a little section of UHMW plastic with a pilot hole drilled right in the middle. This is going to fit in the slot, and then what I want to do is line it up just like this where I need it. I've drilled holes here to align with the centers of those ribs that I pointed out in the bottom of our planter. And we're just going to screw these in place with some number 8 by 2 inch screws. It doesn't need to be super, super strong. We just need it to support these so that they're not toppling over on the inside. So I'm going to get all 4 legs assembled onto our sheet of acrylic, and then we're going to do a test fitting in our planter. Okay, well that method worked really well to hold those PVC pipes in place. And this way, everything is plastic, so we don't have any issues with corrosion or rotting or that sort of thing. All right, that sits in there really nicely. I really like that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to attach all of the pump parts so that they're not temporary. And I guess we're going to take it outside. I'm going to fill this up with water. And before we do the final step, we're just going to test it to make sure that everything is functioning the way that I want it to. Okay, so everything is in place and we've put the water. We'll just turn the solar panel over so that the sun hits it. And there we go. Now we just have one last thing to do, and that will involve our river rocks. Well, before we can use our river rocks, we're going to need to wash them. They look like they have quite a bit, and they do, of dirt and mud. So we're going to put them here in a bucket of water. We're going to wash them up and get them cleaned, and then we can take them over to our fountain. So we can see how muddy and dirty this water is. And what we're going to do is once we get our stones cleaned, we're going to put a layer here on top of our plexiglass. We're going to try to save some larger ones for the outside, and we can place them to cover up the gaps so that the other stones are not falling down in between.
Like that?
Like that one. But I'm going to get this all covered in a layer of stones, and then I'll show you what we end up with. And there you have it. A garden water fountain. What an absolute awesome project. Guys, this is one of those experiments that just went right. And there was a few challenges along the way, like for instance, how to attach those lengths of 1.25" PVC conduit to the bottom of the plexi. And you know, that little piece of UHMW plastic with the slot and the screw, it held it perfectly. And one of the best parts about it is it's not permanent. So it's not cemented together. In other words, at the end of the season, this can be disassembled to take up a smaller footprint. You don't have that big plexi table that you have to store. As well, there was other challenges, and one of them was that plexi or the acrylic table. It was actually smaller than what I wanted. And I thought, oh, no big deal. I'll make it work, because the size of the river stones that I bought was between 3/4 and 1.5 inches. Well, truth be told, the majority of the bag was about 3/4. So because of that, all these stones are falling off my platform down into the reservoir and causing me problems, you know, trying to get it to look right. So I ended up taking some of the offcuts of the acrylic, cutting it to a wider radius, and just basically sliding pieces all the way around the outside to extend that plexi or the acrylic circle. It's not the prettiest thing, but it's under stones. It's under the riverbed stones. So you can't see it, and you don't notice it, and you don't realize that pieces are cut and just put in place. So that worked out in the end as well, to be able to get a thin layer of stones across. Now with that type of, it looks like a bubble, the fountain head that I chose, I found that it is very susceptible to wind. So if there is a breeze blowing, that does tend to shift that bubble over. And if you have the adjustment set as too wide of a spray, it will actually blow over the edge of your reservoir and make it so that you're just dumping water out onto your patio or what have you. Now, my original thought, my original position that I wanted to have this fountain had it placed in such a way that if it should rain, it was going to top it up for me. We've since moved it to underneath our gazebo, thinking it might be a little more enjoyable there, but we've eliminated the automatic filling. And of course, depending on how full you fill that reservoir, you get either the trickling sound of the water going back down into it, or you get very little to no sound, and all you hear is the water hitting the river stones. So that's up to you. That's an adjustment thing, but you want to keep in mind that if you don't have a way for rain to naturally fill this thing up, you could have the potential, over time, to run it dry. And you don't want to do that because you will damage your pump. Now, guys, this whole thing worked out in the end, and I'm very pleased with the results. I would have done a few things differently, as I said, the size of the acrylic and that sort of thing. Might have got bigger stones or maybe white stones or something, but I kind of like the darker stones contrasting the white reservoir. So who knows? I will see. Maybe I'll get better stones or bigger stones or different color stones later. But for now, it works. It looks great. It sounds great. I love that trickling sound when you're sitting out there. And you know what? It's solar. So no electricity, but then again, no sun and the thing doesn't work. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We have an amazing audience base, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of it. Guys, this one was a load of fun, an experiment gone right with a great final result. I want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope maybe it's given you some ideas as to something that you can do in your garden to add a little bit of a water feature or that sort of thing. And more importantly, guys, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesday.